The story of Hollywood Lights centers around three stagehands, a master showman, and the city of Portland. The story begins in, where else? Hollywood, California. Before entering into the service, I was working in the studios in California. And then I went into the Navy. And after I came out of the Navy, I was an electrician, and a set electrician. There was a labor dispute in the studios, and the work was rather slow, so I came up to Portland to work with a friend, and then began working as a stagehand in Portland. George Howard had two searchlights that his uncle sold him. He made an arrangement with me, and so I began promoting the lights. One of the first jobs that we did do was at Jantzen Beach for the opening of the season. That must have been in '48. We did a great deal of searchlight jobs with the car dealers. Movies, opening of movies, almost any kind of a business, from a supermarket to small hamburger stand. We were both on working spotlights at the old ice arena when the flood happened, when Vanport broke, when the dikes broke. And so they, somehow or another, they found out where we were and called us right off of the perches. And so then we went and got the lights and took them out to the Vanport area. And they wanted the lights for security and search and rescue also. We were stagehands and worked in the theaters all the time, and so we accumulated lighting equipment and staging equipment, curtains and so forth, and began renting the equipment out in different places. Little by little, we would accumulate more equipment, and so we were capable of doing bigger and greater events. Hollywood Lights began finding new arenas for their services, and Don hired a student on the stage crew at Benson Polytechnic to help out.
I started out at Hollywood Lights cleaning searchlights, and on occasion they'd hire me to run searchlights. In those days, you had to have a relative to be able to work as a stagehand. I didn't have any relatives. It was pretty closed those days. Pretty closed. One died, one came on. We'd have traveling attractions at the Mayfair, and Neighbors of Woodcraft would have a concert from time to time. We did events at the Masonic Temple. We were involved with the Rose Festival in the 40s. In the 50s, they started doing the Fun Center in the park blocks. They provide electrical service to the exhibitors and for the booths and so forth in the show. There was 100 days of events, and we were involved in all 100 days and all events. And we had to increase our inventory quite a bit to service all of the events, and so that gave us a good stock. And from there we went to the World's Fair in Seattle and the World's Fair in Spokane. This is a kind of business where you can have 10 searchlights, you need 11. You have 10 spotlights, and you need 11. You have 100, you have to have 101. And that's how it expands. Tom left town to attend college, and Bob O'Loughlin came to town, bringing trade shows like Portland had never seen. In 1960, the Coliseum opened, and that opened up an avenue of all kinds of new events. That's when the O'Loughlin family brought their events in there, and so we did a great many of, we did everything at the Coliseum.
So we were the first large flat show that ever came into the Memorial Coliseum.
They were a breath of fresh air to us, because most of the promoters and so forth that we were dealing with, that we had been dealing with for years, it was a constant battle to get our money out of them. And
well, of course, they were responsible for all the electrical and all the lighting, which was tremendous.
And these people came in and they says, I will give you so much. And then after the first show, you knew that was what you were going to get.
In those years in particular, your word was your bond. You shook hands, you had an agreement, and you paid. Win, lose, or draw. And we had the first killer whale ever come indoors. So, and we've had hippo and we had elephant races, and we did all kinds of wonderful things that people like this lived through.
The guy that wrestled alligators wasn't bad.
Those were great years.
It was always a surprise. He would call up and say, well, what do you think about this? And, my gosh, how are we going to do that? I mean, it was...
we had some great moments.
But we'd do it. We'd get it done some way.
The changing music scene changed the business. Another high school stagehand was hired, and Tom came back in a new role.
I was working for Boeing, and Don had talked to me about coming back to Portland. So I thought about it. They talked to me first part of the year in 1969. I bought 25% of the business at that time.
I believe Tom hired Rich.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Well, I was in drama at Sam Barlow, and the teacher knew Don and Tom and knew they always needed help at Rose Festival time.
This drama teacher called us up and said, I seldom do this, recommend somebody like that. And you know, I've never, for a student, but she says, I think this chap is qualified, and he certainly was.
They said, well, if you come to work for us at full time, you know, we'll give you $3 an hour, and that was enough for me. And I was like the rental manager all of a sudden, and they sent me down to the Paramount Theater, and Hollywood had a house lighting system there. And those were like the heydays of rock and roll, and we had 2 and 3 concerts a week down there.
I remember doing the Beatles, and we did the Beatles at the Coliseum with just the spotlights. I mean, there was no special lighting or nothing like that. And everybody was happy with it, but now, my goodness, you wouldn't even begin to do a show without tons and tons of lighting gear.
Of course, when Saturday Night Fever came out in the late 70s, that was like a lighting guy's dream, you know, because, you know, finally somebody took notice of the lighting instead of the sound or the set, and lighting always came last. Well, that was great for us because we sold a ton of equipment.
That's when I started, I couldn't handle it too much. That's when I started making arrangements to get out. It wasn't the same.
And I got a call from Tom, and he says, Don wants to sell out, and you know, are you interested in buying part of the business? And you know, as most, or at least I did, I always dreamed that that would be the case. I mean, absolutely. You know, there wasn't any question. In fact, I knew I was going to do that. I just didn't know when.
Portland was growing and changing, and so was the electrical and lighting business. But it was sporadic, so Tom and Rich got creative.
We had to level off the workload. You have to have full-time employees, and we tried to keep them on. And at times we didn't have any work, so we worked to find other things to do.
Well, when Pioneer Courthouse Square opened, that was the beginning really of the Christmas lighting.
There was all sorts of events around town that we picked up along the way.
You know, Waterfront Park turned into like a major event center, and we had an agreement with the city to do all the electrical there.
We always delivered what we said we would do, and I think that helped us through the years.
Well, you know, after I got Tom to retire, I went out and spent like, it was about $80,000 for a movie generator. These really sexy generators, you know, you got to be like an electrical guy, but they're really awesome. And that was the first thing I did. I spent a bunch of money on that, put it on consignment over there at Walt Dimick's place. Business just boomed. And that was by the fall of '89, I was talking to Walt about buying his company.
While the company experienced growth all along, the 90s saw an explosion. Not only were employees added, so were entire companies.
Come April of 1990, I opened Pacific Grip and Lighting. I had hired Bob Schmaling to be the general manager for me because I didn't know anything about the grip and lighting business. We moved into this building in '93. There's 32,000 square feet here, and I think we had 10,000 square feet there. So I was able to take both Pacific and Hollywood, put them here. It turns out I soon filled this place up as well. But it gave us an opportunity to expand our showroom. But that was the first show, the boat show in 1980 at the Seattle Center, that provided an opportunity for us to go north, which has led to us establishing our Seattle office up there now. But just about that same time, an opportunity arose in the film and lighting business. I went to Glenn Boss, and Glenn had been a good friend for a number of years, and I went to him and said, you know, how would you like to be in the film business, in the movie business? It's all bright lights and glamour, and you know. I think that made his eyes sparkle. We bought the Cine companies, and he became half owner of Pacific. During those times, we'd put together some electrical and had done some RV rallies. And of course, we didn't have that much equipment at the time. So like we've always done, you know, if somebody said, here's a job, then we'd go out and buy the equipment so we could do it. And the Port of Portland had called, said they wanted to do a fancy opening for this new atrium lobby at the airport. We did a fabulous job out there facilitating it for the most part. And it really convinced me to get into the moving light business. I had bought Superior Stage and Lighting and brought Mike and his staff on board.
Wow.
So many events that never used stage lighting before use them nowadays. Corporate events, grand openings, you name it. If there's an event going on, they want some form of entertainment lighting. And so our department goes out and does that, from the idea to the finished product.
From a couple of searchlights back in 1948 to now, we've grown tremendously. And you know, it's, I've been really fortunate. As I tell people it's been 50 years, and they kind of laugh and say, well, you don't look that old. And I say, well, no, but I've been around for 25 years. If you look at the events, the history of the event business is just like looking at art history as well. And if it's been produced, or it happened in Portland, and we were probably there. It's a lot of work. It's been a lot of good times, a lot of good people I've met along the way, and it's a lot to be proud of. And I have a lot to owe Chitom and Don for what they've given to me and helped establish tradition, I think, of that I've hopefully been able to carry on.